Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Gandy's Tackle Talk. This is episode number 3. Hope everybody's doing well. So I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this video, and I thought of a question that I've received a lot, and that I had to ask a lot in the beginning, is what kind of line do you use? There's so many different kinds of line, so many different applications, you know, what you're fishing, how thick the cover is. There's a lot of factors that play into fishing line, and I'm going to go over all of them, but I have dialed my fishing line basically down to 3 lines that I use. Now that doesn't include, you know, what pound tests they are. That's just what types of line that I do use. So number 1 is going to be monofilament, and this is actually the only spool of monofilament I have. This is just P-line monofilament, but there's a ton of different brands for monofilament. That's great. I grew up, me and my dad always used Cajun line, the red Cajun line. We would always go with like a 15 or 17 pound test, and we used it for everything. Really strong line, and we just had good luck with it. So, but monofilament is one of those lines, I don't really use it that much anymore. Not that it's bad. Everybody's different in how they fish, but it seems for me that for most of the types of fishing that I'm doing, it has too much stretch for me. So monofilament has a lot of stretch in it. It does work really good for, you know, crankbaits, you know, with treble hooks. It works really good for like topwater spooks, things like that. Anything with treble hooks, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of stretch in those cases, because it helps keep that fish pinned a lot of the time. But I really don't use monofilament much anymore, because I've just found other stuff that I like better. But monofilament's a great line to use. The last brand that I found that I used a lot was the Berkley Trilene. It was the Berkley, it was the Trilene Big Game monofilament. Really cheap, like $7 or $8 for a spool. It might have even been cheaper than that, but really, really good line for how cheap it was. And you get like 330 yards on a spool for that. So that's a line that's definitely I recommend, because I'm always one, and you'll find this out in my videos, that I'm on a budget. So I try to find the best product that I can for the least amount of money. And when it came to the Berkley Big Game, it was just good line. You got a lot of it on a spool, so you could do multiple reels with one spool, and it was good, strong line. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about monofilament. It has its places where it works really well, and some people just like it. Some people like the stretch. For my situation, I found it has a little bit too much stretch most of the time for what I'm doing. But yeah, so monofilament, great line. Highly recommend it for starters. And I do recommend the Cajun line is good line. A lot of people may disagree with that, but the Cajun line is really good line. The Berkley Big Game is good monofilament for the price. It really is. It's good, strong line. I'm trying to think of other brands. P-Line makes good monofilament. Suffix makes really, really good monofilament. I used them for a couple years when I did use monofilament, and I liked the line. It was a little bit too pricey for me, but I did like the line a lot. So there's a lot of different brands. Just find what you like. You know, I always went with like either a moss green color, like this one here. You can see it's got a green hint to it, or just a clear line. And then I did use the red Cajun line, but yeah, so monofilament's pretty basic. If you have any questions about monofilament, let me know. If I don't know the answer, I will find somebody who does. Next is going to be one of my favorite lines now. I've been using it probably the past 3 or 4 years, and I really, really love it. Fluorocarbon. And if you haven't fished with fluorocarbon, you have to try it. It's really, really great to fish with because it is the exact opposite of monofilament. It has no stretch. There is virtually no stretch with this line, which in turn, you know, makes it really easy, especially for using heavier setups. Like I do a lot. I use heavy rods a lot, fast gear ratio reels, and I'm fishing heavy cover too. And so fluorocarbon is a great line to use. This is one of them that I use, the Berkley Vanish. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, but this is a really good line for the money. I think it's like 12 or 13 bucks for a spool. You get 250 yards on it, so quite a bit of line for the money. And it's like I said, it's really, really quality line. It's crystal clear, nice small diameter, but really, really, really strong. So highly recommend that. And like I said, with heavier cover situations, I like fluorocarbon because I can rub it up against docks, stumps, sticks, reeds, whatever, and it's very, very abrasion resistant. Whereas monofilament, you know, you pull one fish out of that kind of cover if you're able to get him out, and your line's all frayed most of the time, and you have to retie. You got to cut 2 or 3 foot of line off. I have found with fluorocarbon, I don't have to retie as often when it comes to the line fraying because it just doesn't like to fray. It's very abrasion resistant, and I can go a lot longer without having to retie. And during tournaments, that is very, very important. I want to save as much time as I can while I'm on the water. I want to get as many casts in while I'm on the water because you're on a time limit. So fluorocarbon is really, really great. It has it's allowed me to be able to get more fish in the boat because it doesn't stretch. So when I set the hook, it's on, I bring him to the boat. There's no playing around with them or anything like that. This is 14 pound. This would be a great line to use for, you know, spinner baits, Texas rigs, even light buzz baits. I've seen people use fluorocarbon for a buzz bait. I don't like fluorocarbon for a buzz bait because it does sink. Fluorocarbon is a line that does sink, whereas monofilament and braid, they float, and so that helps with top water situations. But when it comes to Texas rigs, spinner baits, crank baits, leader line for if I'm skipping docks, you know, if I have a braid on and I use it as a leader, this is great leader line to tie onto your main line. Really strong, no stretch, and I love fishing fluorocarbon now. Anything that I used to have monofilament on, fluorocarbon is on it now. My go-to is 20 pound fluorocarbon. Now this is another, it's a branch off of Berkley. It's the Trilene Big Game 100% fluorocarbon. This stuff is dirt cheap. It's like 10 or 11 bucks for a spool. This spool has 350 yards on it, and that's a lot of line for $11. That's a lot of line, and I've tested it over the past couple years, and even with how cheap it is, it's really, really good line, really strong. And I use the 20 pound for my standard Texas rig because a lot of times my Texas rig kind of is a multi-purpose deal. I cast it, you know, along grass lines, on ledges, whatever there may be, sandbars, pads, but sometimes I will get into a situation where I want to flip and I want to do it quickly. So I may be fishing along, fishing some light Kissimmee grass, and then I'll come into a small section of thicker reeds or pads or even thicker Kissimmee grass that you can't really cast in because you're just bringing your bait across the top. But you can dual purpose with this kind of line and a heavier setup, fast gear ratio reel. It can multi-purpose as a flipping setup too, a light flipping setup, if you will. So that's one of the other things I really like about fluorocarbon is the fact that it's really strong. So I can fish it around heavier cover than I could with monofilament, because not saying the monofilament wasn't strong enough, but it gives them more stretch, so it gives them more time to wrap up around dock post, reeds, pads, whatever it may be. So that's where the fluorocarbon comes in. I love fluorocarbon. You do not have to spend a ton of money on fluorocarbon to get a good line. Like I said, this is $11 at Walmart. You get a ton of it, and it's really, really good, strong line. It's not a real big diameter. I mean, it's very, very stout line though. Crystal clear. So, and I think that gets a lot more bites too, especially in clearer water situations. Having that crystal clear fluorocarbon, I have noticed that I do catch more fish using that over using braid or something like that. But yeah, so fluorocarbon is one of my go-tos now. Probably 50% of my rod combos have fluorocarbon on them now. So highly recommend going to fluorocarbon. It will change the way you fish because it's way quicker getting fish to the boat. And I just have confidence in it. I'm not scared to cast into heavy cover. I'm not scared to cast under a dock and worry about my line rubbing up against the dock post and breaking or fraying or anything like that, because it's just really, really good line. So that's number 2, fluorocarbon. Highly recommend it. That's one of my top lines that I use now. And this is also another brand of fluorocarbon that I've used a couple times. It's the O'Hara. And I really like this line for leaders. This is 15-pound test. I mean, I would even put this straight on a reel, you know, for a lighter Texas rig or spinnerbait or something. But the O'Hara has been really good fluorocarbon too, so I do like it as well. I'm honestly not sure how much this cost. This was some line that I won in a raffle, and the last time I had it, I got it in a raffle with the tournament club that I'm with as well. But so far, I mean, really don't care what the money is. It's worth the money because it's really, really good leader line. So that's another brand you can go with when it comes to fluorocarbon. Now, this is another line that I always have a lot of my rods tied up with, and that is braid. Most of the time when I have my spinning setups, you know, for skipping, doing like drop shots, shaky heads, things like that, I'll use 30 pound. That's what this is, 30 pound, 8-strand braid. And then when it comes to some of my flipping setups, some of my heavy cover top water setups, anything I'm fishing heavier cover with, I usually use either 50 or 65 pound. With my flipping setups, it's 65 pound braid. And then with my, you know, little top water stuff, bringing it through heavier cover, swim baits, even poppers, frogs, anything like that, I'm usually using 50 pound because I'm using a little bit lighter action of a rod. Not much. It's still a heavy rod, but yeah, I will use 50 pound for that. It's easier to cast, and it's really strong as well. But I've used quite a few different braids, and this is not dogging any companies at all. I'm not dogging anybody, but there's been a couple companies that I spent the money on their braid and went to use it, and it just didn't work. Every time I would set the hook, line would snap. It would fray really easy. The knots didn't like to stay tied. So I had to experiment with braid a little bit, as you should. Everybody, I mean, find what you like. Experiment, get a couple different products, find what you like best and what works for you. But I have found, I've used Power Pro, J-Braid. I've used I can't remember the name of that company. It's an off-brand of braid that I had found on Amazon one time, and I got it, and it was actually pretty good braid, but it was really rough. So, but there's a ton of different braids that I've tried, you know, spider wire, P-line, a lot of different braids. And my favorite, and I don't know what it is, but I go back to the Berkley Trilene. And again, it's about price as well as quality. So this line runs about 18 bucks for a spool. And that goes for the 30 pound all the way up to the 65 pound. About 18, 19 bucks for a spool, and you get 330 yards. Versus when I used to use J-Braid, and again, this is not dogging J-Braid. They have a phenomenal product. I loved their line. I used it for a long time, but I was spending 13 or 14 bucks all the way up to 20 bucks for 150 yards. So you have to keep that in consideration when you're buying line, because you don't want to be throwing money at a product that's good, but you can find another product that is just as good and you can get it for, you know, a quarter of the price, half the price, whatever. So, but yeah, the Trilene Big Game braid, again, you can get it at Walmart. So it's really easy to get and it's cheap. I mean, 18, 19 bucks, you get 330 yards, which is quite a bit. I can get quite a few spools done out of that. But it's really, I've tested it. This is probably what I've been using the past 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And I've put it to the test, man. I fish a lot of heavy cover. When everybody else is fishing grass lines, they'll see me way in the back of the grass line. So I do fish a lot of heavy cover, and it's held up great. I've had really good luck with it. Now this is more for, like I said, flipping. I will use it on a spinning combo, you know, for lighter drop shots that I have a leader on, a fluorocarbon leader on. You know, I'll have the braid as my main line, and then I'll put on a fluorocarbon leader. But I use it for a lot of topwater baits because it works great. You get direct connection because there's no stretch in braid at all. So you get a direct connection with that fish when you set the hook. And again, with the braid, you can really winch them out of whatever cover they're in. Not to mention, with braid being a rougher line, it will also, as you're trying to winch that fish out, it will cut through grass, it'll cut through pads and get that fish to the boat. And in tournament situations, that's the main goal, get the fish to the boat. And braid definitely does the work when it's paired with the right rod and reel combo. So, but yeah, basically those the two of the main lines I use are fluorocarbon and braid. Most of mine are set up with that. Now there is another line, and I actually don't even think I have a spool of it, but I do like it. Yeah, I don't have a spool of it right now, but it's called Izorline. It's Izorline copolymer, and shout out to Gene Jensen, Fluke Master. He's had a YouTube channel. I've been watching him for years. Really knowledgeable guy. I learned a lot of what I know from him. So thank you, Fluke Master, for the years of schooling. But he introduced me in a video. He had introduced the Izorline copolymer. I had never heard of it before, and he did a video on it, and it's a really great line. I wish I had a spool of it to show you because it's not expensive, but it's a great product. And what it does, copolymer is like a blend of monofilament and fluorocarbon. So it's like a hybrid. So you have a little bit of stretch, but not as much as if you had monofilament. So you don't have no stretch like fluorocarbon, you just have a little bit of stretch like mono. But it's a really good strong line, and I actually prefer to use the Izorline copolymer when I am fishing square bill crankbaits. You know, if I'm fishing kind of open water situations where there's some structure, you know, down on the bottom, where there's some stumps that are submerged, rocks even, you know, when you're fishing some of the canals down here in Florida, banging a crankbait off those rocks. I really like the Izorline copolymer because I do have some stretch, so I'm able to keep the fish pinned, but not quite as much stretch as monofilament. So that's another great line. I think it runs like 13 bucks for a 250 yard spool or a 300 yard spool. It's not that expensive, but it's really good line. And it works great for crankbaits. Now, I haven't really used it with much else. I think I've thrown some spinner baits on like the 14-15 pound test before, and it did really well with that. Again, just a little more stretch than fluorocarbon. But it's a really, really good line, and it's something that I do suggest people to start off with. So if you're first starting into fishing, fluorocarbon is a different feel when you're casting it than monofilament braid. It's way different than throwing regular monofilament. And so if you want to kind of ease out of fishing from monofilament into fluorocarbon, I suggest going from monofilament to copolymer, because it gives you a little bit more of the feel of fluorocarbon without some of the added expense. Because fluorocarbon, a lot of the other brands, I mean, because not everybody is going to like this. I like it, it works for me, but you know, a lot of people are going to want to go with you know, Suffix or P-Line. What's the other super popular? Seaguar fluorocarbon, and those get pricey. That's good line, but they get pricey. So I suggest if you've only been fishing with monofilament, or you're one of those new anglers that, you know, you went and bought a rod and reel combo that has the line already on it, it most likely has monofilament on it. So you started with that, you have a feel for that, but you're wanting to get into something with less stretch, so, you know, a little bit more quality line. Go to the Izorline copolymer, or a copolymer. I know a bunch of other companies make them. I just personally like Izorline because it's a non-expensive line, but it gives you more feel of fluorocarbon. And especially if you're getting more into crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, rattle traps, square bills, deep diving crankbaits, that the copolymer works really, really well for those. So highly suggest that. But like I said, most of the time I am using either braid or fluorocarbon. Those are just my two. And again, fluorocarbon, there's multiple brands that I like, but the Berkley Vanish, the Trilene, you know, Big Game, those are the two most affordable but yet really quality lines. And when it comes to the braid, you can use Power Pro, you can use J-Braid. Those are all great lines. I've had great success with all those lines as well. This is just a line that I found did the exact same job, but was a little cheaper. So go out there, shop around, find what you like, experiment with it. Definitely when you're starting in fishing, braid changes your life, because you can, especially if you have the right rod and reel combo, you can fish cover that you can't fish if you're using monofilament or copolymer and stuff like that. So braid's a game changer, and fluorocarbon is a game changer. Like I said, with this fluorocarbon, I think in the last video about spinnerbaits, I had the 20-pound fluorocarbon on my spinnerbait setup. That is because I fish some heavier cover with a spinnerbait. So that 20-pound fluorocarbon is great for fishing heavier cover situations, but yet you still get clear line. It casts really well, but you have the strength and no stretch. So, but yeah, I hope that this answers questions about line, because there's so many different options about line. And I get that question a lot, you know, what kind of line do I need to use? You know, but it all depends on what you're doing and what you like. You know, if you are a fisherman that, you know, let's say that you're a dock fisherman, you fish mostly off of docks, or you may have like a kayak or something like that. You just do small little lakes around, and there's not really much heavy cover. It's mainly, there's some thin grass, you know, Kissimmee grass, or some reeds and stuff like that. You might not need all this. You know, you might just be able to get away with monofilament. It's up to you, you know, on what you do. But I do know that, you know, me getting into tournaments heavier over the past couple years, there has been times where this braid has been absolutely necessary because I couldn't get bites doing anything else. So I needed to fish that thicker cover. But yeah, so any questions on that, please comment below. And like I always say, if I do not have the answer, I will try to find someone who does have the answer for you, and I will make sure to get back with you. I hope you enjoyed this. That's kind of all I know to say about line. There's a lot of options out there. I gave you what I like, you know, and some of the more cost-effective ways you can get into it. But But yeah, thank you for watching. And like I said, comment below if you have any questions. And hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I will see you on the next one.
Switched it up, you